Welcome. We're going to address a couple of things, a couple of questions. We are going to talk about if you already own a house, you live here in Alaska, you've thought about selling, but you can't justify house prices, you can't justify the rates. In this, we're not going to be able to remove every thought necessarily that you have, but we're going to give you some things to think about to expand your thinking that might actually fit you in your best case scenario. I'm Brandy Malcuit with AblazeAboutAlaskaGroup. We have two lenders on here. We have Matthew and Kathy, so they're both able to jump in and speak up or ask questions as well. They're with Six Pillar Lending. We're going to be looking at a specific home that's actually listed on the market. We're going to talk about its pricing from 2000, as though it was being sold in 2019, the pricing that being sold at the peak of COVID time, which is 2022, and then right now, be able to talk about the interest rates, the differences, so that you can see what they are, and talk about some solutions to be able to maybe get a comfortable interest rate or a comfortable purchase price when negotiating if you already own a house that you're going to be selling to make that purchase. All right, so with this screen share, I'm going to be sharing 3 CMAs, which is a comparable market analysis. And again, it's going to be from 2019, 2022, and 2024 right now. So this is the house that we're talking about that we have on the market right now. It is actually a really nice home. The floor plan on this home has 4 bedrooms upstairs, but it also has a family room upstairs, and the bathrooms are upstairs and the laundry room's upstairs. So it's all convenient upstairs. A lot of lighting. There are windows through the stairwell area. So like if you didn't want to turn lights on, you still have light, natural light pouring in through the stairwell. So it's not dark when you're walking upstairs or need to turn on a light. This property is located centrally in Wasilla. And when I say centrally, you're within 29 minutes or 22 minutes to Palmer. You're within 10 to 13 minutes from a Three Bears, Target, Fred Meyer's, Cars, Walmart, and then about 49 minutes from Anchorage. So it's a really nice location. These are all comps that were pulled up for this 2022 right here. And I'm going to go to the actual suggested sales price for this home in 2022. Right now, here, I don't know if you can see my highlight. The recommended would have been to be selling at $579, $495 for 2022. So that's really important to note. A high could have been a $593. Now, when we look at the comparable of today, we have a recommended price of $590, which is interesting because that means it's higher than the peak COVID time of a time to sell, which is excellent for sellers. If you price where it is recommended, you are still making over the peak of COVID when people were bringing in multiple offers, according to what closed in 2022. Then if you look at 2019, before 2020 hit, and we had the big change to our whole market, you've got the recommended sales price of $891, dollars. Now a high then would have been 440. So when you look from 2019 to right now, we're about $160,000 over from 19 to now. That is a huge, if you want to call rate of return, that is a huge turnaround for money in your pocket to be able to move on or invest in a different way. And it's very interesting to know that it's still approximately 10,000 over the peak of the whole COVID thing, which would have been 2022. Now, again, the high for that, and this is all based off of closed, what sold in 2022. This house, according to that, would have sold at a high of $593,000 and a recommended $579,000, a low of $565,000. In 2019, the high would have been $440,000 and a recommended of $429,000 and a low of $419,000. And as of right now, according to the stats that we have for you and the general public who may not know this, when you do a comparable market analysis, you want to look at the market. Well, appraisals look at up to a year, but typically go from the first 3 months, the past 3 months, to see what the market has done. And if they can find comps that are reasonable, they'll expand it to 6 and they'll expand it to a year. And this particular one, because I was looking at a whole year, I went on ahead and looked at all of 2024 for this house, which brings this house at a recommended 590, a high 605, and a low of 575. Now, in having a conversation as though you are the seller, this is really good to know, because your focus needs to be on your net and on your goal. What are you netting and what's your goal? Where are you wanting to go and what's your target price rate? What can you afford? And what are your wants and your desires, and how you can mesh those together to find a healthy compromise, if you want to say, between all these things to work for you and your family. So the main thing of this objection is addressing that if you're a seller, the objection here would have been, I don't want to sell because of price. Like you're looking to buy. I don't want to buy because prices are so high. But right now, it's almost like, why wouldn't you want to sell? Because the prices are so high. Again, I know everybody's objections are different because they're catered to their personal life. But this is just something to think about. Maybe that just undid something for you to be able to expand where you need to go. So I had a conversation with both Kathy and Matthew in regards to the interest rates. A lot of interest rates is the next conversation. So we talked about the market. The next conversation is interest rates. They're so high. You're uncomfortable with the interest rates. It was, we were in the 4s before the whole switch to all of a sudden going to 2s and dealing with COVID. The 4s were kind of the norm. I bought my house at 4.75. 4s and 5s was reasonable. People were comfortable with the changes and the shift that happened. Then we had a doozy thrown at us where interest rates all of a sudden, boom, at the same time as the market just went crazy because of a pandemic. And so now we had prices that got pushed up at the same time as we had low interest rates, which had to come back and balance out. And right now we're higher, and it is within reason to think that they'll go higher, as well as to think that they'll just balance out and come back down, maybe to those 4s and 5s. But right now, we can't predict the future, but what we can do is look at exactly where you're at right now. So based off of, say, the house that we were just looking at, saying a price of $590,000, if we were looking at a conventional loan, down payment of 20%, and you wanted these interest rates to be dropped to 5.37, 5.75, 6.5, this lets you know the estimated cost to bring that interest rate to that from today's rate of, according to my Google search, 7.03. Okay, 7.03 is what's today's rate, is what they're saying. So if you want to bring it down into the 5s where it's more comfortable, if you're focused on rate. Now we'll talk about price and we'll talk about rate and how to use money, your money as well as seller's money and stuff like that, to find an even compromise to get a win-win for you in making the next move. But this lets you see those numbers right now. So interest rate, you're wanting to drop it to these rates. This is how much, if it was today, locked, ready, and loaded, you would need to have in hand cash-wise to be able to get that rate there. And that seems like a lot of money when you think about it, right? $23,000 to take from 7.03 to drop it to 5.37, or 15,000, or 27. Again, your discount points are cost to buy down rate. And I want to emphasize something. I learned from 6 Pillars here that there's a difference between doing a temporary buy down and doing a permanent buy down. And that is something you're going to want to have a conversation with them about, so that you know what that means, what might be in your best interest in making those decisions. But again, here we're looking at the numbers to what it would take to bring down your interest rate. And if you're focused on interest rate alone, a way to be able to get that number down is possibly negotiate it with the seller. Or if you say you had $160,000, if this house that I had just showed you, you sold at 590, you've got, say you only owed 200,000 on it, you've got money to use, and the rate is what matters to you. You can buy that down so that your monthly payments or whatever you need them to be with that. However, before you make such a decision, you have that conversation with your lender, because they can expound upon numbers to show you where taking that 20 grand might be more beneficial to either A, put it towards your down payment, add it to your 20%, B, apply it somewhere else or hold on to it. So those are conversations that it is so important to be having with your lenders to know. But if you are focused on the interest rates and you're wanting them lower, there's a way to do this. And if you're needing help with doing that, there's a way to be able to possibly negotiate that with the seller. Because a lot of sellers who've been in their home for a while that are in this price range, now not all the sellers are in this position, because we have a lot of VA that flips their homes every 2-3 years because they got to move and stuff. But if there's that availability or a possible negotiation, you could be bringing that forth in your offer to have, because you won't know unless you ask, right? You can also have those conversations to find out what's in your best interest. Now, when you come down here, 590, that one was with conventional, having your 20% and then the discount points, and then showing your payments. They showed your estimated payments, just rough estimate. This is not official or anything like that. It's just giving you some numbers to play with in your mind. This is just giving you food for thought for a conversation with your lender and your realtor. Lender specifically with this one. So here is for VA, and that's if you were to still put 20% down and you were to buy down your rates to these right here, where interest rates, you buy them down to the 4. Sorry. Don't know why it's doing that. 4.75, 5.5, and 6. It's showing you the dollar amounts again, estimated payments. This is at a 590. And then you also have your FHA. Notice FHA's got the highest discount point rate, $38,000. But again, there are creative ways to get that money to be able to apply and use it, whether it's from your own proceeds or negotiated with the seller, to be able to get your rates down. That's an idea. Now, in regards to coming back to the house, say you don't want to pay $590,000 and you like the idea of 2019's price of $429,000. You could, with you selling your home, knowing your net proceeds, you can take that money and bring that down, stay locked in at today's interest rate, and when the rates fall, then you can refinance and you save yourself money. You've brought that dollar amount down and you're in a bit more comfortable place. Your money is still invested into real estate for yourself and for your family and your needs. So those are two things to be able to look at. So we talked about the house, the prices, and the rates. Those are ways we talked about that there's possibilities to either bring those prices down through negotiations of adding your money toward a down payment to bring the price down if you want, or to bring money toward your down. There are some of you who need creative financing to the point where you need, you have your down payment, but you need some closing cost assistance, and you might need some broker fee assistance, and you might still need some assistance to go toward having a buy down. Recently, we had a transaction, actually me and Kathy had a transaction not that long back, where our client also needed the rate to come down a little bit. So things got to be applied accordingly, where her fees were taken care of, her closing costs were taken care of, and they were able to address a rate appropriately. And so that was a win-win-win for her, and the seller was happy. Interesting, in that negotiation, the seller was so stuck on the sales price number that he could have negotiated. I didn't represent the seller, I represented my buyer, but he technically could have negotiated differently and come out with a little more on hand if he understood what he was doing a little bit better, had more of a clear understanding of how to negotiate that to where he might have been able to save a few extra bucks on his end. So that's where coming in and having conversation with a realtor of your choice. Here I am, my go-to, Brandy Malcuit with AblazeAboutAlaskaGroup, and talk about those things to be able to figure out what's in your. We help you accomplish what's in your express best interest. And when I say express best interest, is we work according to what you have told us to be able to help coach you to fulfill your real estate endeavors and what you're wanting to do for your future. So again, I came in here basically to kind of conquer 3 things. One was talking about the market price and overcoming that objective through the funds and possibilities of ways that you can do that. Also possibly negotiating the price down a little bit. Seller may be willing to say, hey, if you're ready to come in with the price and I'm not helping with closing costs and all these things, sure, I'm happy to take $30,000 off the price. You know, that might be the win for you. If you're needing closing costs and you're needing a buy down, then you need to come in with a creative offer that's asking those things. So there's a way to be able to get creative, to move the funds around, because there's funds there. They just need to be appropriated to be able to help both feel like they have a win-win, both you, the seller, and the buyer. So the market, then we talked about interest rates. And then the third thing that I wanted to mention that I kind of wanted to address, and this is all new, never done this before. So I want to hear your objections. I want to learn how to, I want to problem solve with you guys, especially because I've met so many that really do want to make a move, but are having a hard time justifying it from one way or another. And so the third thing is making that confident decision, because you hate pain of looking back and having regret and going, oh, I could have avoided that. So when you're making your decision, you're able to go, nope, I was educated, I was confident in what I was doing, it fit my needs for that time, and it gave me what I wanted. And so to help you stay focused on those things and overcoming fears, I was talking with, actually, Matthew, we're talking about fears that some people could have of paying more than they want in the home, which we just talked about how you can change that. Interest rates. Something that's really important is you can, I love what Kathy says. She always says this to me and with my buyers: marry the house, date the rate. That means you can refinance. At some point, you can refinance, you can change your terms somehow, right? So I love that Kathy says that all the time. And then the other thing is Matthew pointed out, are you staying in your house forever? And if you're not staying in your house forever and you're not going to stay there for the rest of your life, then let's look at it from that perspective. And I would love to give you two both a window, Kathy, to talk about the marry the house, not the rate, and Matthew, if you guys are interested, or because I know some of you are cooking and stuff. If you can't get on, that's a-okay. But Matthew, if you wanted to touch on the idea of asking the question, are you staying in your house? And the answer is no, then talk about the interest rates from that angle. So go ahead and cue in if you want to.
My philosophy is, if you're in love with the home, buy the home. Rates change. If you're having a hard time finding a dream home, if you've looked with Brandy at 10 or 15 houses and you walk in and you say, this is the house, buy the house. Interest rates change. You can refinance in 210 days. If you do a streamline, if you do FHA or VA, there's so many different options out there to lower your rate. Don't let that house pass by you just because you're scared. You know, you have 6 months of it, and then you can do a much better deal. But I'll let Matt chime in if he's there on some of the other good programs and good things that we can do to help you get into a house that you are in love with.
Well, I think that's basically what I wanted to come on here to address. If Matthew shows up and he's able to have cue in on those things, definitely we'll do it. Hopefully we'll get to come back and do this again and be able to have some objections that others may bring up to us in conversation after Thanksgiving that we can maybe bring to light in this conversation. Because again, I want to be here to help you overcome your own objections, especially if you're truly desiring to move. You're wanting to move and you're dedicated and you don't want to make a mistake and you want to make sure that it's worth your time and it's a good investment and just really be able to help you go over your scenario of the whole situation to see if maybe your mindset was blocking you from being able to move forward, and then you're able to move forward. Or if you conclude that, nope, I was right and this is where I need to be, that you're able to do that and do it confidently. And that is something that I love with working with Kathy and myself. We are in in it to win it for you. So if it works for you, it works for you. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But we're still here through your game plan process so that when it works for you and when it's time, we all go and we're on your team. We're cheering you, we're help coaching you to keep you focused and all that.
And everybody remember, call me. It's free to talk. It's free to ask questions. It's free to do what ifs or maybes or I'm thinking about this. And then, let's look at it. You might qualify for a duplex to where you have the investment other half helping you pay your mortgage. You might qualify, Brandy might can find you a fourplex where, you move in one side, three other people are paying your rent instead of you paying somebody else's mortgage payment. So there's so many different options. Don't be scared of the no or the unknown. It doesn't hurt to make a phone call. It doesn't hurt to talk. It doesn't hurt to look at the options to see where you're at in the home buying experience, to see where we need to get you, where you want to go. Don't be scared because of the interest rate. You're paying somebody else's mortgage when you could be paying your own mortgage
Something
for
else
the
to
same
remember.
price.
Something
Huh?
else to remember on that is rent. If you're a renter and you're in a place where you actually are entertaining the idea of buying, rent is 100% interest, meaning you ain't getting no return. So 7% versus 100%, that is something to think about.
Yeah. So
But mostly, hopefully, the audience that is listening right now, you already own a home and you've been trying to make the decision. You've been wanting to make the decision to go on ahead and sell and to make that move, whether it's here locally to move within the community still or to move out of state. We're here to help you explore all your options, to know how to get creative financing as well as creative with your offer. And I do want to give you a heads up, since you would be in a position of selling as well. One new strategy that I learned of just this week that I have yet to experience, I can't wait to do, but I have yet to experience is a seller and a buyer were going back and forth in negotiations, did not come to terms. And then at one point, the seller, they parted, but then the seller wrote an offer, signed it, and sent it their way and said, this is what we're ready, willing, able to do. And it happened to be something that would work for the buyer. And it was just another way of coming around to find the way to communicate for both everybody to get a win-win, and they closed. And I just recently heard of that story and testimony. So sellers, don't be afraid that if you get a buyer coming in, the goal is to work with them and help get a win-win for both of you, but also to be able to literally write a different offer up and say, this is literally everything we're ready to do. And so I think it's pretty exciting. I love creative ways of doing things. Like I said, in one of our transactions, we were able to get creative enough to where the closing cost, broker fee, and some buy down was done on a rate, and everybody got what they wanted. So
I just want to say thank you, Brandy, for inviting me and Matthew to join you on this. And Brandy is a wonderful realtor. She's well knowledged in both the buyer and the seller side, and she's going to do whatever is in the best interest for either party that she represents. So it's always been a pleasure working with her on our transactions. So you are wonderful.
thank you.
So.
And Kathy is very thorough, and she's also very creative and willing to look for all options to help buyers and sellers. She obviously works directly with buyers. So with you selling and you wanting to buy, she's able to help with that creativity and showing where your finances and your money needs to be. And so you can be able to make those confident decisions. And I know she's very thorough and detailed about it and very patient with it. She's very patient with going, okay, let's look at this. So
Thank you.
yeah. Well, I thank you both for being on here, Matthew and Kathy. I know Matthew is out for a little bit. Just him popping in, like, we know that this was extremely last minute, brand new, first time ever doing it. My husband will probably edit this a little bit for me before getting up on the thing. I'm Brandy Malcuit with the Blaze About Alaska group, and I'm gonna re-say that because I'm working on a new phrase. My go-to is Brandy Malcuit with the Blaze About Alaska group. And Kathy?
I am Kathy Nemeth with Six Pillars, along with Matthew. We're two local lenders here and is willing to help you in any questions that you have.
Yep. You guys stay blessed. Go be intentional to bless
Thank you.
somebody else and have an amazing night. Yeah?
And everybody have a happy Thanksgiving tomorrow. Have plenty of blessings with family and friends.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving, you guys.
All right.
Later.
Bye.